On January 18, 2024, in Tokyo's Adachi ward, police launched a massive search operation centered around the Takahashi family's three-story home. The Takahashi couple had mysteriously vanished since the afternoon of January 16th, after returning home. Cell phone location data showed their last known whereabouts were near their residence, yet despite thorough searches, no trace of them could be found. It wasn't until the afternoon of January 18th when a police officer suddenly noticed a strange putrid odor emanating from beneath the bathroom sink that the horrifying truth began to emerge. The first person to discover the couple's disappearance was their 31-year-old son, Takahashi Ichiro. On the morning of January 16th, he left for work as usual. Everything in the house appeared normal, and his parents showed no signs of anything unusual. But when Ichiro returned home at 8 p.m. that same day, he immediately sensed something was wrong from the moment he reached the front door. His father's beloved modified car was still parked in the yard, even though that morning his father had mentioned taking it to be washed but clearly hadn't done so. The house, which at this hour should have been warmly lit with his mother bustling in the kitchen and his father watching TV in the living room, was instead dark and eerily silent. Ichiro's calls echoed through the empty house, but there was absolutely no response. His unease grew when right at the entrance, he discovered several bloodstains that appeared to have been hastily wiped clean. His heart immediately sank. While continuing to call for his parents, Ichiro searched through every room of the three-story house, but found no one. Worse still, he spotted more blood traces in the bathroom and hallway corners. In his panic, Ichiro frantically called his parents' cell phones, but only heard the automated message indicating the phones were turned off. He then contacted employees at the bar his father managed, receiving confirmation that Mr. and Mrs. Takahashi hadn't appeared at the establishment all day. Contact with his sister yielded no additional information. At this point, Ichiro realized something truly terrible had happened in the house. Without hesitation, he decided to call the police. The missing person, Takahashi Norihiro, age 55, owned a bar located in the Igecho district. This establishment had been operating for over 20 years, with a capacity of about 20 customers, primarily serving middle-aged men in their 50s, with somewhat of a gray industry nature. However, in the eyes of employees, customers, and neighbors alike, the Takahashi couple was known for being exceptionally kind and decent people. There were nights when customers who had traveled from afar to drink missed the last train, and Norihiro would readily stay with them until morning before seeing them off. Both he and his son shared a passion for vintage cars, with all the vehicles in their household having been modified by his hands, turning them into refined hobbies rather than displays of wealth. Despite living comfortably, he chose a discreet, peaceful lifestyle, avoiding conflicts with anyone. The bar operated steadily with many regular customers and a high return rate, making revenge from business competitors highly unlikely. Ichiro's mother, Takahashi Kimie, age 52, often appeared in glamorous attire alongside her husband, but was actually a quiet, introverted person who greatly valued proper etiquette. In 2020, the couple and their son moved from another location in Ashikaga ward to their current residence. This three-story house was purchased through a joint loan of 37 million yen, approximately $247,000. Although they were still paying off the mortgage, the Takahashi family's financial situation was quite stable, with more than enough to handle monthly payments, thus ruling out economic disputes as a motive. During the crime scene investigation, police noticed that all windows and doors of the Takahashi house remained intact, showing no signs of forced entry. The interior of the three-story house also showed no evidence of ransacking, with valuable items still in their original positions. From this, the initial hypothesis was that the Takahashi couple might have been kidnapped for ransom. However, 24 hours passed without Ichiro, the only son, receiving any ransom calls. This silence made the case even more mysterious and puzzling. The investigation didn't stop there. Upon continued thorough examination, police discovered several unfamiliar knives in the house that didn't belong to the Takahashi family, with one still bearing bloodstains. The forensic results shocked everyone. Besides the Takahashi couple's blood, the scene also contained traces from two other sources, blood from a third and even a fourth person. This discovery immediately pushed the case to a new level of complexity, transforming it from a simple kidnapping suspicion into an intricate crime scene with the presence of mysterious, unidentified individuals. Security cameras around the neighborhood quickly became crucial evidence. Footage showed that after noon on January 16th, the Takahashi couple left their house separately. Around 4 p.m., Norihiro returned first, and just half an hour later, Kimi also came home. From that point forward, neither of them left the house again. However, strangely enough, despite police thoroughly searching both the house and garden, even excavating suspicious areas, no signs were found indicating they had left or were hidden within the premises. The Takahashi couple seemed to have simply evaporated, leaving behind a mystery that brought the investigation to a dead end. But just when it seemed the case had hit a wall, on the afternoon of January 18th, a police officer making a routine examination of the bathroom made an unusual discovery. As he approached the sink area, he caught a whiff of a strong, putrid odor permeating the air. The bathroom's structure was simple: toilet on the left, shower on the right, and sink in the middle. After careful inspection, the officer determined the smell was coming from the floor directly beneath the sink. He crouched down and tapped lightly, immediately realizing this section of flooring was hollow, with a space underneath, likely designed for pipe maintenance or storage of small items. Everyone immediately began carefully lifting the wooden floor panel. In the dim light, a grotesque object appeared, tightly wrapped in blue bedsheets. The vague outline of two human bodies underneath sent chills down everyone's spine. When the fabric was removed, the horrifying truth was revealed. The Takahashi couple, who had been missing for 2 days, now lay motionless before everyone's eyes. Their bodies were covered with stab wounds, densely concentrated on the upper torso. On their arms, defensive wounds clearly showed their desperate final resistance. The tragic scene was so brutal that no one could bear to look directly, and it completely extinguished Ichiro's fragile hope that his parents might still be alive. The medical examiner's autopsy quickly revealed the extent of the brutality. Norihiro had suffered 10 stab wounds, while Kimi had 8. Many of the stabs were executed with chilling precision, aimed directly at vital organs. Both died from fatal wounds to the heart. The time of death was determined to be January 16th, coinciding exactly with when they disappeared. The method of attack showed deep hatred and clear murderous intent, without any hesitation. Each knife wound on the Takahashi couple's bodies served as a tragic accusation, recounting the terrifying and desperate moments they had endured. But the most haunting question remained. Why would a couple who lived quietly and were loved by many become targets of such cruel crime? What exactly did the killer want? The gruesome deaths of the Takahashi couple fundamentally changed the nature of the entire case. What had been a mysterious disappearance was now officially a serious murder case. And the first person to fall under police investigation was none other than their son, also the one who reported them missing, Takahashi Ichiro. Some neighbors recounted that Ichiro had borrowed money from his father multiple times, and that father and son had engaged in several heated arguments. More dangerously, just shortly before the tragedy occurred, father and son had jointly purchased a house in the United States, with Norihiro contributing $500,000 to the purchase. If the Takahashi couple died simultaneously, ownership of this property would naturally fall to Ichiro alone. This clear financial motive made police unable to ignore the possibility. Could he have been the one who killed them to inherit everything? Initially, police theorized that Ichiro might have murdered his parents to seize their assets, then pretended to report them missing to cover up his crime. However, faced with such serious accusations, Ichiro was extremely indignant. He firmly maintained that under no circumstances could he have committed such an inhumane act. Not stopping at verbal denials, many of Ichiro's colleagues came forward as witnesses. They clearly confirmed that on January 16th, Ichiro had been present at the company from morning until the end of his shift. The time between when he left work and returned home until he called police was too short to have committed the crime. After careful cross-examination and verification, police confirmed the authenticity of his alibi. From that point, Ichiro was officially removed from the suspect list. During their review, police attention this time focused on a masked couple. Camera footage showed that on the morning of January 16th, shortly after Ichiro left for work, they had stealthily appeared around the Takahashi house area and lingered there for many hours, only leaving in the evening. Their behavior became even more suspicious when, upon leaving, the man was caught throwing a blue bag into a nearby public trash bin. Police immediately took action, quickly securing the trash bin before the collection truck arrived. Sure enough, inside the bag were several blood-stained pieces of clothing. When shown these items, Ichiro was stunned, as he immediately recognized them as his parents' clothes. Forensic results quickly confirmed the blood on the clothing matched the DNA of Norihiro and Kimi. This discovery excited the entire investigation team. They understood that this mysterious couple was most likely the perpetrators of the tragedy, and the hastily discarded bag was crucial evidence that moved the case into a new phase. Following the trail from security cameras, police continued tracking the movements of the suspicious couple. Before appearing near the Takahashi house, they had been recorded at a supermarket in the neighborhood, where they purchased several kitchen knives along with blue plastic bags. Although both wore masks deliberately concealing their faces, when the video footage was shown to Ichiro for identification, he was immediately stunned. Unmistakably, the woman in the video was his former Filipino girlfriend, Morales. This relationship had begun in December 2020. At that time, Morales was 27 years old, working as a nursing assistant at a hospital in Saitama Prefecture. Throughout their dating period, she had borrowed money from Ichiro multiple times, and he, out of love, had never refused. Their feelings gradually deepened to the point where they considered marriage. It was then that Ichiro brought Morales home to meet his parents. During their first meeting, the Takahashi couple seemed very pleased. Morales was beautiful, well-mannered, and could communicate fluently in Japanese, creating an excellent first impression. However, not long after, when they learned that this girl owed Ichiro up to 600,000 yen, approximately $4,000, their attitude completely changed. From joy to anger, both vehemently opposed the relationship. Kimi even didn't hesitate to demand that Morales repay the money and immediately break up with Ichiro. Faced with strong opposition from his parents, Ichiro ultimately listened to their advice. He cut off contact with Morales, even going to the police to inquire about debt recovery methods. However, what was puzzling was that after a period of silence, at noon on January 16th, Morales suddenly sent Ichiro a text message with the brief but haunting words, "I love you." Not only that, she also called desperately hoping for reconciliation. Ichiro was momentarily confused, but given the distance that had been created for so long, he firmly refused her request. By after 5 p.m. that day, Ichiro began to sense something unusual and called Morales, but she didn't answer. He continued texting, asking if she was still at work. It wasn't until half an hour later that Morales replied with just 4 words, "It's finished now." A message that seemed harmless at first glance, but looking back now reveals much more sinister implications, like a warning signal of the impending tragedy. A friend of Morales later recounted that on January 17th, he had had a strange encounter with her. At that time, he saw Morales pacing anxiously in a convenience store, muttering, "Help, help," while appearing panicked. But when he approached to start a conversation, Morales completely ignored him and hurriedly left, leaving behind a puzzling impression. Morales had entered Japan in 2017 on an entertainment visa and had been living there alone since. During her relationship with Ichiro, she frequently visited the Takahashi house, becoming so familiar that she knew every corner and even the door entry code. The apartment she rented was only about 1,440 feet from the Takahashi house, just a few minutes' walk away. But when police followed the lead to her residence, the room was completely empty. Based on her bank data, they discovered that on the night of January 16th, the very evening the murder occurred, Morales had stayed at a hotel near the Takahashi house. Afterward, she quickly left Tokyo, fleeing to a small inn in Hokkaido. On January 19th, after days of tracking and intensive screening, police finally apprehended Morales at a small inn in Hokkaido. When law enforcement suddenly appeared, her face briefly showed panic, but she quickly regained composure. When questioned, Morales firmly denied the charges of murdering the Takahashi couple. She insisted that on January 16th, she had appeared near the Takahashi house area, but only because she was helping a friend look for housing and was just passing through, with no intention of visiting. However, although Morales was now in police custody, numerous details indicated she hadn't acted alone. Who was the man appearing in the surveillance video? What was his actual relationship with Morales? As the investigation continued to deepen, a new name began to emerge clearly in the case file: Dela Cruz, a Filipino man. Confidential sources revealed to police that Dela Cruz had a very close relationship with Morales. Even more suspicious, just one day after the tragedy at the Takahashi house occurred, January 17th, Dela Cruz had appeared at a hospital for treatment of a hand injury. This detail immediately put police on high alert. Shortly after, they quickly launched a comprehensive investigation to clarify Dela Cruz's role in this shocking case. On January 19th, Dela Cruz sent a selfie of himself lying in a hospital bed to a friend. This photo became a crucial clue for police to track him down. In the image, he appeared pale, his hand wrapped in thick bandages, his eyes showing a hint of unease. Through photo analysis and tracking his movements, police finally determined his hiding place. Dela Cruz, 34, and Morales had been childhood friends from the same hometown. From elementary through high school, they had always been classmates, maintaining a strong bond over many years that fostered a deep friendship. After growing up, life's path led Dela Cruz to Japan. From 2018 to 2021, he had worked at a construction company as a technical trainee. When his term expired, he returned to the Philippines, but not long after applied for re-entry. In July 2023, he successfully returned to Japan, continuing to work as a trainee and living in Tsuchiura City, Ibaraki Prefecture. During this time, Morales still frequently visited, often going out together with Dela Cruz and his girlfriend. It was this closeness that had bonded the two to the point where they were inseparable. But then forensic evidence revealed the truth. On the knife recovered from the Takahashi house scene, besides traces of the Takahashi couple's blood, DNA testing also confirmed the presence of Morales. The bloodstains left on the entrance floor belonged to Dela Cruz. On the night of the murder, January 16th, around 10:20 p.m., a surveillance camera captured Dela Cruz. In the footage, he wore a jacket, mask, his hand wrapped tightly in thick bandages, entering a convenience store and purchasing 3 cans of beer. This image was not only chilling, but also clear evidence making it difficult for Dela Cruz to deny his connection to this shocking tragedy. On January 22nd, police launched an arrest operation in Tsuchiura district. Dela Cruz, who had casually used only a jacket to cover his head while still boldly going to the supermarket to buy beer, was quickly apprehended. Faced with relentless questioning in the interrogation room, he soon couldn't withstand the pressure. Finally, Dela Cruz confessed to participating in the case, revealing that Morales had promised to pay him to lure him into committing the crime together. This confession gradually revealed the entire truth behind the tragedy. It turned out that several days before the murder occurred, Morales had secretly monitored the Takahashi couple's daily routine. She had multiple times stealthily broken into the 3-story house to scout, becoming familiar with every corner. When every detail was part of the plan, Morales immediately invited her childhood friend, Dela Cruz, to participate. On the afternoon of January 16th, after ensuring the Takahashi family had all left, both of them once again used the door code that Morales had known from before to sneak into the house. They brought knives and plastic bags they had prepared in advance, hiding in the darkness for several hours, waiting for the moment when the Takahashi couple would return. While waiting, Morales even called Ichiro, sending text messages pleading for reconciliation, like a final desperate sign. But when her plea was firmly rejected, the last glimmer of hope within her completely collapsed. When Norihiro had just stepped through the front door, he was immediately ambushed. Sharp, cold knives stabbed repeatedly into his body right at the entrance, causing him to collapse. Just minutes later, Kimi returned, and the tragedy repeated itself. The poor woman quickly became a victim under the cruel knife attacks. Having completed their crime, Morales and Dela Cruz hurriedly began hiding the bodies, trying to erase evidence. However, due to being too rushed, bloodstains remained scattered throughout the room that they hadn't had time to clean, traces that would soon expose their plan. Logically speaking, Morales and Ichiro's breakup was just a normal occurrence in romantic relationships. But why did she become so heartless as to murder even her ex-boyfriend's parents? Could there be another secret hidden behind this cold-blooded act? To understand the true motive, we need to delve deeper into Morales, a woman who appeared beautiful and seemingly helpless and harmless, but whose life was actually far more complex than her appearance suggested. When she first set foot in Japan, Morales worked at a Filipino-owned bar in Asakusa. With her striking appearance, charming personality, and ability to speak fluent Japanese, she quickly became the center of customer attention. But then when the Japanese government tightened management of entertainment visas, particularly targeting bars and nightclub industries to prevent illegal foreign labor, Morales' path suddenly hit a dead end. To stay long-term, she didn't hesitate to enter a fake marriage with the son of the Filipino bar owner, despite knowing he already had a girlfriend. From then on, she confidently remained in Japan, freely operating in the glamorous world of bars where she quickly became a sought-after name. There was an elderly man over 60 named Kaminska who was infatuated with Morales, becoming her #1 patron. Kaminska spent very generously. To make her happy, he once spent 20 million yen in a single night, and in total had spent nearly 100 million yen, approximately $670,000, on Morales, elevating her to become the bar's top star. Morales also lived a luxurious life with him, frequently dining at high-end restaurants, shopping for all kinds of luxury goods, spending money like water. However, Morales' golden days didn't last long. Kaminska, the wealthy patron who had once been infatuated and spent lavishly on her, while browsing social media, had accidentally seen Morales' fake wedding photo. The feeling of being deceived made him angry, and he confronted her directly. Morales tried to explain that everything was just to legitimize her visa, but these justifications couldn't salvage anything. From then on, Kaminska no longer appeared at the bar. But the truth was, he didn't turn away because of emotional hurt, but because he had fallen into legal trouble. It turned out Kaminska was the mastermind behind a real estate fraud scandal in Japan worth 5.5 billion yen, approximately $37 million. All the money he had used to pamper Morales was illegal funds. When Kaminska was arrested, Morales' source of income immediately disappeared, and her luxurious lifestyle plummeted straight into the abyss. It didn't stop there. The bar where Morales worked soon fell into crisis. Authorities discovered that this establishment had arranged for up to 25 Filipino women to enter fake marriages to legitimize their status in Japan. Although the owner was fortunately not prosecuted, this incident forced the bar to close, completely ending Morales' support system. During this turbulent period, Morales had given birth to a baby boy. However, the bar owner's son flatly denied the child, refused parenting responsibilities, and even used this as grounds for filing for divorce. Driven to a dead end, Morales had no choice but to take the child back to the Philippines to be cared for by her mother, then return to Japan alone to continue making a living. This time back, Morales couldn't return to the luxurious life of before, but had to move to work at another small bar run by Filipinos. However, her finances became increasingly desperate. Having grown accustomed to spending lavishly, Morales began borrowing money from regular customers and colleagues, only to sometimes suddenly disappear, cutting off contact with everyone. Perhaps it was in this desperation that Morales suddenly chose to escape the nightclub spotlight, applying to work as a nursing assistant at a hospital. Although this job was modest, it helped her find some stability again. And it was precisely here that Morales met Ichiro online, quickly discovering the comfortable background of this Japanese young man. For Morales, Ichiro was nothing less than the last life preserver she could cling to, nurturing hopes of returning to the luxurious life of her past. However, unexpectedly, in November 2022, faced with fierce opposition from Ichiro's parents, this relationship was forced to end. Some believe that the collapse of this hope caused Morales to direct all her resentment toward the Takahashi couple, those seen as the cause of the couple's separation. And just a few months later, she quietly rented an apartment less than 1,480 feet from the Takahashi house for 90,000 yen, $600 per month, secretly plotting a brutal murder. When the case was exposed, it caused strong shock not only in Japan, but also throughout the Philippines. Particularly, Filipino public opinion worried that the case could strain diplomatic relations, directly affecting their country's labor community in Japan. However, those who had known Morales expressed skepticism. They insisted she had always been gentle, showing no signs of evil capable of murder. Even a senior official from the Technical Trainee Supervision Agency expressed surprise, stating that Dela Cruz, the compatriot involved in the case, had always worked excellently, and he truly couldn't believe he was arrested in connection with this shocking crime. Some believe that Morales and Ichiro's breakup, followed by her choosing revenge through a bloody murder targeting his parents, is difficult to explain, because if it was just about money, she didn't need to go to such extremes. However, perhaps Morales still had genuine feelings for Ichiro, not entirely just for money or visa status. The clearest evidence is the call before the murder occurred. At that time, she still held a fragile hope in her heart that they could reconcile. So why did the Takahashi couple ultimately become victims? Actually, looking at it from all angles, the person Morales truly wanted to take revenge on wasn't Ichiro's parents, but Ichiro himself. Because they had once had a sweet period together, even considering marriage. If not for fierce opposition from his parents, they probably would have become husband and wife. However, what hurt Morales most wasn't the opposition itself, but Ichiro's attitude. When their love was tested, he didn't choose to protect her, nor did he try to resolve the conflict, but instead, obediently listened to his parents, implicitly viewing her as nothing more than someone who only clung for money. The lover who once made promises instantly became a mama's boy, leaving Morales in utter despair. Therefore, the hatred within her wasn't only directed at Ichiro's parents, those seen as the cause of their shattered happiness, but mainly concentrated on Ichiro himself, the man without principles who didn't dare fight for their love. Morales resented herself for being powerless, but resented even more the man who had caused her to fall into the abyss. And so, she chose the most cruel method, revenge through blood, forcing Ichiro to carry inconsolable regret for the rest of his life. However, this case still has one major question. Why did Dela Cruz agree to risk everything to participate? He clearly knew that just being involved in this crime would mean the hard-earned job in Japan, along with all future plans, would go up in smoke. So what was he really doing it for? Was it because of promises made in childhood, because of an unbreakable friendship forged over years? Or did Dela Cruz and Morales have a secret, much more complex relationship than what we see? Currently, the final indictment as well as court proceedings remain unresolved. What fate awaits these two killers? How justice will be served? Everything is still open-ended. And that's today's case. What are your thoughts on this case? Please share in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next videos.